Right. So today we will start talking about Apex. Right. Apex is the programming language which is native to Salesforce and it's used for writing all the logics. Right. Salesforce has given us a very nice, wonderful application. In case we are happy with that application, it's okay. If we are not happy with that application, then we have the option of writing our own logics. We have the option of creating our own user interfaces. We have the option of creating components in the database, right? So, for writing logics, you need an application which can understand your logics, which can take your inputs, do the kind of analysis that you wanted to do, and then it can actually perform the action as per your instructions. So basically, if you want to follow, if you want Salesforce to follow your instructions, you have to make Salesforce understand in a language which Salesforce.com understands. All right, and Apex is that language. All right, so the instructions need to be given in using Apex. All right, so let's start with what understanding what is Apex first. So Apex is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language. Okay, so this is an object-oriented programming language, and it's a strongly typed language. Okay, strongly typed means you always have to define the data type of the variables. While you're defining a variable, you define the data type. Whether your variable is a string or an integer or a boolean, whatever it is, you have to define that. That allows developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. So this allows the developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. So you can control the flows and transactions. Okay, and this all is allowed on the force.com platform. So this Apex is pretty much native to Salesforce. So you cannot use Apex language outside Salesforce, and you cannot use some other language inside Salesforce. So that's how it is. Apex enables developers to add business logic to most of the system events. So this basically allows you to add the business logics to your system events. System events can be anything like, when a record is getting saved, when you click on a button, when a page gets loaded. So you can add logics to get executed on these system events, right? Okay, so including button clicks. So you can actually, perform a logic on a click of a button. Related record update. Okay, so they can be logic getting executed when the related record is updated, and visual force pages. All right, so that's how it is. So Apex enables developers to add business logic to most system events, including button clicks, related record updates, and visual force pages. All right, so that's what basically Apex does. Now before we start writing any code in the Apex, what we're going to do is we're just going to understand the data types which are allowed in this Apex. All right, because it's a strongly typed programming language and you have to define data type for each of the variable. All right, so first of all, let's understand the data type. Most of the data types are pretty similar to the ones which are used in any other programming language, but some data types are very new here. So in Apex, all variables and expressions have a data type. They have to have a data type. Okay, that is one of the following. What all data types are allowed? First is primitives. I'll tell you what exactly primitives is. Second is S-object. Third is collections. Okay, so we have these three types, three data types primarily. Under primitives, there are more of more data types. So primitive is basically a data type that you find in any other programming language as well. Something like a string, integer, date time, got it? A decimal. So these are primitives. So Apex primitive data types basically include Boolean. So Boolean is something which can only be a true or false or null. Decimal, a number that includes a decimal point. Double, a 64-bit number that includes a decimal point. ID, any valid Salesforce.com ID. This ID is very particular to Salesforce Apex. Okay? You will not find this ID data type in some other programming language, but these things you will find. These are very common in other programming languages also, Boolean, decimal, double, and all that. Okay. Integer, 32-bit number that does not include a decimal point. Long 64-bit number does not include a decimal point. String, any set of characters. So string is basically text or and number combined. Date, we understand what's date, we understand what's date time, we understand what's time. All right. So all these are primitive data types. So while you're writing a program, you can use these data types: Boolean, decimal, double, ID, integer, long, string, date time, time. All right. All this is available, right? So something like string a equals hello, integer I equals 20. Okay, things like this. Decimal day equals 20.56, right? So this is how it needs to be defined.
Ajit, what is the primitive double? I mean, how it is defined?
The same way. Fine. So you have to give the data type name and then the variable name and the
Okay, but
value.
what is basic the difference between the decimal and double, Ajit?
Okay. Decimal is basically something which includes a 32-bit number, and double is 64-bit number. So double can have a little more storage space. So it can hold a bigger value. Right?
Okay, okay.
Okay. Now then comes the S objects. All right. The next data type. Primitives we have seen. Now let's come to S objects. Okay. The S object is basically, the term S object refers to your Salesforce object. S object means Salesforce object. So this is the data type which is very specific to Salesforce. You don't use S object data type anywhere in other programming languages. Alright. Any object that can be stored in the force.com platform database. That's what S object is. Okay. Any object which can be stored in force.com platform database. That's a Salesforce object. Okay. An S object variable represents a row of data. Now in primitive, what we were doing, we were talking about a specific type of data, string or integer or, so that was my variable, right? My variable, what is the type of data that goes into the variable? When I talk about a complete record as a variable, that's S object, a row of data, like a account record. Okay, if I have an account, IBM, and I want to define a variable for that particular account, then that will have a full row of data, because my account has a name, it has an industry, it has a created date. There is so much of data attached to it. So that's what an S object is. It holds complete row of data. So an S object variable represents a row of data. Okay, not just a single value, complete row of data from that particular Salesforce object, and can only be declared in Apex. So there's something which is very specific to Salesforce. It can only be declared in Apex. For example, account A. Okay, so now account A is account A refers to, what does A refer to? A row of data in account object. Got it?
Yes.
My custom object CO. So This will represent a row of data in this custom object, whatever is your custom object name. Okay, so this needs to be defined like this.
Which row of data? Not clear.
Okay, sorry.
So you said it represents account A, it represents the row of data. So which row?
That you will define on the side of the equal sign. No? Which row of data? That's it's a variable, right? It can that's a holder. Okay,
Uh-huh.
you understand what's a variable, right?
Yes.
That's it. So
No, like,
variable you can assign any value to the variable. That we understand, right?
yeah.
So which row of data is not the question. We are defining the variable now. Variable, so you can assign any value, right?
Okay.
When you go to buy a photo frame, does the shopkeeper ask you that which photo will you put? Today I will put this photo, tomorrow I will put some other photo, right? So variable is like that. It's a photo frame, right? What data it will include, that you can, wherever you are calling this variable, at that time you can give a value to it in the right hand side. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jeet, is in this account A example, is this A the S object or is it account A the S object?
S object is the data type, fine.
Okay.
This is how it needs to be defined. A is the S object variable,
Okay.
okay. And what does this variable, what can this variable, okay, we understand what's a variable. Manjit, what's a variable?
Um, Variable is something that can take different values.
Vipula, what is a variable?
So it's a holder.
It's a holder, okay. Now, okay. So in a holder, can I fit anything? If I have a small wallet and I'm trying to put, let's say, a big laptop inside my wallet, can I put it there?
No.
No.
No, right? That's it. So when you're defining a holder, you have to define what will that holder hold. Container, it's a container, right? So if that container can contain what thing? So when I say account A, this container can only contain a record from account. Correct? Now you cannot put a contact data inside this. That's the
Mm-hmm.
concept of S object. Okay, this can only hold, or it can only contain data from an account record. Okay, so this is the Salesforce object, and this is the S object variable. Got it? Why it can hold only account data? Because I've defined that this is an S object variable of account. That's what I am writing. Got it? Now, if I write it as contact C, what will this hold? What can it hold?
A row of data from contact.
From
Okay.
contact only, right? Can I put a campaign data inside this?
No.
No. Correct? So that's how it is. So because we are actually going to write most of our program for for the data that we have in Salesforce, not most of, in fact, all the program is going to be written for that. So we need a data type which allows us to define variables that can hold a row of data. Okay. When I say row of data, it can be complete row of data with all the fields. So contact has a first name, a last name, everything, right? So that can be defined. Now is that clear? The concept, why we are defining it and what exactly we are defining. Tell me if there is still a question.
Yes, Jeet.
Vipula?
Yeah, Jeet.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so should I speak?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so in this case, like A and C are just like examples, right? Like account A, like it can be any account. Or
It's a variable. We've done maths
yeah,
in,
yeah. So
yeah, in childhood we have done math now, that there was an x. X can have any
yeah,
value, right? So here
yeah.
account A can be any account. It's a variable for account.
Okay, okay.
Fine, and it can hold any account record. So it's not an example, it's a variable. Call it a variable.
So like every time it will start with A only. Like it has to be A only.
No, variable name can be anything.
Anything. Okay, okay. Yeah.
Right? I think this is the third or fourth time we have asked that variable name has to be this or not. So variable name can be anything. I think. All right, so try and understand that. Okay. So variable name is whatever you supply, and variable data type is what you have mentioned here. All right. Now, when I say account A, then you have options of defining like new account. Okay. This means a new account record. New account record basically something which is not in my database. Okay, I'm just talking about account a new account record, and I can supply values to this also. Name equals IBM, type equals let's say customer indirect, industry equals technology, right? Got it? So this is how it can be defined. This is one way of defining a record if you are trying to define a record from your side, okay, and not fetching it from the database. Or other way can be account A equals select name, type, industry from account where name equals, let's say, Dell. Okay, so the second example talks about fetching a record from the database. First one talks about you defining a record. Correct? Here it's fetching it from the account table from the database. In the first one, I am talking about defining a record from my side. So there are two things basically. Okay. So your question that what data will come into this is the answer. Okay. Now this can be anything. You can assign whatever value you want here, and you can assign whatever value you want here. There are these two ways. All right. Now let's say I'll go with the first example again. So we write it this way. Now what happens is a dot name. So what is the value of a dot name now?
IBM.
Yes,
IBM.
yes,
IBM.
right. So the field name from there. Okay. So if you have to write something like this, okay, let's say you're trying to write a program where you need to check technology of a certain account, and if the sorry, not technology, industry, you are writing writing a program, and you want to say that if the industry is technology, then do something else, don't do something, whatever. So what I can do here is I have my account defined here. I can define another string. Who is your name? Industry. So this is a string. Okay. And then I say industry equals a dot technology. If industry, sorry, industry, if industry equals technology, do something like that. All right. What does this mean? What this program will do?
First, you define the data type of industry. Then you put a dot industry into industry, and then if industry is equal to technology, then you complete.
Yeah. So what exactly it's going to do from here to here, from here to here?
Yeah. If industry comes out to be technology, then it will pull out the
Right. So
data.
it will check if the industry of this record is technology or not. Right. So that's it.
Jeet, the second line in that code, sorry to interrupt you.
Hmm.
The second line in that code is defining another string called industry, right?
Right. Very
Okay,
good.
and we are assigning a value, a dot industry to that string
Right.
variable.
Very correct. And then you are comparing it. That's it.
Okay, okay, all right.
Got it?
Hmm.
So this is how this is, right? So industry alone, it's a primitive. And the industry value can fit in a primitive string. But a complete record is S object. Now we get it? Now that logic is clear. Or let's define like this. Contact C equals select email from contact where name equals Jeet. Okay, and then I say um, string e equals c dot email. If e equals null, maybe delete c. What will this do?
So if email is not there, then it will delete the contact.
That's it. Simple.
Yeah. So that this C contact, this C is S object, right?
Yes. So C is a S object, and that's the reason why you can actually get the values of the fields from there. Because C itself is a complete record, so you have the option of writing C dot field name to get the field names or the field values, right?
Mm.
So that's how it is. This is how simple the coding is going to be, right?
Yeah, Jeet, in this example, the whole record, no, under your name would be deleted, is it?
Yes. C is a complete
Okay,
record.
the whole record. Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, true. Got it.
Okay. So that's it, right? That's about our S object. So now, before I get into creating in a few examples with this, let me also talk about another data type, which is a list collection data type. Okay. What is a list? Okay, let me first of all explain, and then I'll show you how it needs to be. So list, we understand, basically it's collection of values. So if you're talking about one record or one value, that's okay. But when you're talking about multiple values, then you need a list. Okay. A list is an ordered collection of primitives or S objects that are distinguished by their indices. Okay. A list is an ordered collection of primitives or S objects that are distinguished by their indices. So this can be a collection of primitives, this can be a collection of S objects. The index position of the first element in a list is always 0. So basically what is happening here is, this is a collection of values where every value has an index number. Okay, and the first value that gets into the list gets the index value 0, as you can see here. Second one will have index 1, third one will have index 2, fourth one will have index 3. Okay. So what is the advantage of this kind of a list? The advantage is that identifier for the values is index number. Okay. Which means if there is one more entry for red, if you have one more red here, this red and this red will be considered as unique values. They will not be considered as duplicate because the identifier is index number, because they are sitting in different index numbers. Sometimes you have that requirement to allow the duplicate values. That is where we will use this list. Okay, so there's this very common concept like this.
Could you explain that duplicate thing once again, Jeet?
I'll just show it to you here. Okay. If you define a string called color, this can have only one string value, right? Red, green, pink, whatever. Okay, because this is just a single value variable. But I have another option of defining a list, which is written like this: list of string. Now it becomes a list of values. So you can put whatever again variable name. New list of string. Red, green, pink, purple. Sorry, purple. Tell me, do we understand the difference between these two lines? Do you understand the difference between a string and a list of string?
Yeah.
Correct?
Uh,
So this can hold only one value, this can hold multiple values. Alright? Now
True.
there is a concept with the list that every value that gets inside the list has an index number, and the first value has the index 0. Okay, which means, and you don't have to define that, it automatically takes it in the backend. So a list automatically maps these values to the index numbers. In our case, red is what is the index number for red?
0.
0.
Okay. Index number for red is 0. What's the index number for green?
1,
For pink?
2,
For purple?
and 3. 3.
I make one more entry of red here. Let's say I have entered one more value. It's red again.
Mm-hmm.
What will be the index number of this red?
4.
Okay. Now this one and this one, the red at the index 0 and the red at index 4, will not be considered as duplicate because the records are identified based on index number and they have different index numbers. Got it? The logic is
Sorry,
clear?
can you come again? No, can you come again, Jeet?
Both of them have different index numbers, and index number is the identifier. That is the reason why they will not be considered as duplicate.
Okay, alright.
Make sense?
Yeah.
That's the reason why index number, list assigns index number to each values, so that even if there is a duplicate entry, it will consider them as duplicates. It will consider them as unique because the index numbers are different, and the index number is the identifier of the value. Is that clear? So
Yes.
that is the logic. So when you're creating a list, it allows duplicate values because it has index number. Okay, why will I have index numbers? First logic, basically if I want to allow some duplicate values in a list. Alright, if I know that there will be certain values which will repeat in my list. Alright, then I will have my list concept. Okay, if I know that my list can have duplicate values, let's say you're trying to create a list of all your accounts which gave you maximum revenue, okay, by month. So in January you got maximum revenue from a certain account. In February you got revenue from a certain account. In March you got it from a different account, right? But there's a chance that the account which gave me good amount of revenue in January can be repeated in April also, right? So there this index number concept helps. Right? It allows the duplicate values. Second benefit of this index number is this, that now you can write colors dot get two. What will it return?
Pink.
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 Yes. So since index number has been assigned, you can fetch the data from any part of it easily. Okay. Or you just want to see what is the first value which got into this database table. All that you have to do is uh, string first color equals colors dot get. So for the first value, what should I do?
0.
0. It will return red. Got it? So there are two advantages. One, the duplicate values are being allowed. Secondly, you are able to actually go and fetch any particular value depending on the index number. Correct? That's how it is. Okay, once, so let me just write a few things here. And the same thing, list of string, the way we are writing it here, this can also be written like this. These two things mean exactly the same. There is no difference. This equals this. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So you can define a list of string like this, or you can define a list of string like this. Same thing. Doesn't make a difference. Most of the times in Apex programming we will use this syntax, but this also means the same. This is just for your understanding. In our programming, and most of the times wherever you see Apex programming, you will see the list word used, but this also means the same.
You can list similar like arrays.
Yes. So list of string colors. Let's say new list of string, and then you write red, green, pink. Okay. And then I can say colors dot add yellow. What do you think this will do?
Add yellow to the string.
Where? To the list.
Up
To the string.
to the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Where? Which index
It will
number?
be index 4, 3.
Yes.
Sorry, 3.
Yes. So it will be added at the end. Correct? So that's how it is. All right. So that's basically about the list of strings I was talking about. You can have list of string, integer, and all this. Now come back to the list of account. Okay. List of account. Let's say A equals select name, type, industry from account where industry equals uh, energy. What will this do?
To list all the
It will fetch all the records where the industry is energy.
industry.
So the difference between what we were defining earlier as object that could hold only one row, this can hold multiple rows. That's the difference. Clear? Any questions or doubts here? Simple thing. So whenever you have to deal with multiple records, you deal with the list. Okay, and if you have to deal with a single record, you deal with the normal S object. Account A can return single record, can hold single record data, and this list of account A can have multiple records. So you have to understand what is your requirement. Do you want to work with multiple records? Then you have to define it as a list. If you want to work with a single record, you'll have to define it as just count. Okay, or as the S object. Clear? Okay. Now come to the uh, other part of it. Can anyone tell me what's a class? Anyone who knows what's a class? No? Okay. Um, no one knows what's a class. Let's do one thing. Um, Variables we understand by now, right? We understand what a variable is. Now there's something called a method. So far what we have done is we have just defined variables. We have understood what a variable is. After the variable, the next thing that you need to understand is a method. Okay. What is a method? Method is like a function. Method or function, the same terminology, used differently different places. So a method is basically which exactly tells the computer what needs to be done. Got it? So whether the record needs to be created or deleted or inserted or updated, so that goes into the method. Variable does not do anything. Methods do, right? So method has the instruction of performing the action. Okay. So we have variables and we have methods, and we have a class. Class will hold your variables and methods. So the simple understanding should be a class is you know a piece of code which holds your variables and methods. All right, that's it. And you can call the class wherever you want, and through the class you can call the methods. All right. So a class is something which can hold. See, again, we are just talking about containers. Firstly, I needed a container for the values. So I thought of variable. Now then I needed a container for instructions. Then I defined a method. Now I need a container for putting all these methods and variables in one place. I define a class. Got it? So that's all.
So method call the class or class call the method?
Okay, let's just hold on to that. Let's see how it works, and then because whatever I reply to you now, that will confuse you more. So don't get into that. Let's just hold on into that how it's called and who calls what. Just try and understand what a class is, what a method is, what a variable is. Are we clear on these three things?
Yes.
Okay, so my structure should be like this. There should be a class. Inside the class, you should have some variables. Okay, and then you can have some methods inside the class. Let's say there is a method called m1, there is another method called m2. This is how it is. Okay, so this is the simplest understanding of it. So a class will have the variables and methods inside it. Clear? So this is basically your complete piece of code, and now what you have to do, wherever you want to use those methods, you call the class and then you call it through the method. Sorry, you call the method through the class. But again, if the calling thing is creating confusion, don't get into that. I just want you to understand this structure. We are clear on this structure, we are good. Now a class will while you're defining a class, while you're writing a class, you have to define the name of the class, and you have to also define, you'll have to also make the class as public or private. Okay, so any class which you want to use outside needs to be defined as public. Okay, a private class can be used only within that class, so the outermost class can never be a private class. Let's say if you are defining a class, if you are defining a class C1, this class always has to be public, it cannot be private. Okay, this always has to be public. What is a private class? Inside this class, if you have another class, let's say class C2, then this can be a private class.
Or public too, or just a private.
Sorry,
This
inside
class
this
can be public or
it
private both.
which one?
This private class can be public too, or just a private
Ah,
inside
it,
the
it,
class.
it can be public. If you make it public, then it will be accessible from somewhere else also, out from outside also. But if you are making it private, then it is accessible only inside this. So I want to, maybe access this class somewhere here in this code only. Okay, then you will make it a private class and create it here. So that's again something which you will not do initially, but just for your understanding. So a private class is something which can be a child of the parent class, but the outermost class should not be private or cannot be private, because it has to be called
Jeet,
outside only, right?
okay, Jeet, accessible from outside in the sense, can you please
Maybe you
elaborate?
will see, all this code logic what you are writing, you'll have to call the code logic somewhere, right?
Okay,
Maybe on a
in some other
page or
programs.
some, yeah, somewhere we'll have to call it, right? When I'm
Okay.
writing instruction, that instruction needs to be accessed from somewhere, right? That you
Mm-hmm.
do this instruction when this happens. So you'll have
Mm-hmm.
to call that somewhere, right? Maybe on a page or on a click of a button or somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Code, so I'll not just write and keep it, no? I'll just call it somewhere.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is there.
So
So
that's the
for your
reason why the
understanding,
first one
as
needs
of
to be
now,
public.
to put it in simple words for your understanding, it should. Yeah, you were saying something, Manjit? Did you say
Yeah.
something?
So that is the main reason why the first class definition should be
Has to
public,
be
right?
public. Otherwise, if you don't have to call it, what is the point, right?
Yeah. We can't access it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Got
that
it.
has
Got
to
it.
be
Sure. Okay.
public.
Got it.
Okay.
Mm.
Now, as per our understanding, what we will need to do is we will need to write the class as public. So our structure will be like this: public class, class name, which can be C1, C2, C3, whatever you want, and this is where your variables and methods will be defined here, which can be basically the piece of code, right? So the piece of code will have variables, methods, everything. Okay, so that's it. That's basically how your structure is going to be. Where do you create the class? You go to setup, develop, apex classes, and here you can click on new to create your class. That's it. This is where you should create your class. This is where we write the program. I told you the class always have to be public, at least the outermost one. Okay, this is how you should start writing a class. Public class, class name, and then start the curly bracket, end the curly bracket. So this is the start and end of this class. Okay, whatever needs to be written inside this class has to be inside this. Okay, and for the programming, I do not know if you guys are aware of it or not, but for programming logics, everything has to be, whatever you open, whatever brackets you open, you'll have to close the equal number of brackets. So that's again one logic. If it gets a little longer, you just have to see whichever bracket you have opened, you'll have to close. More like an HTML tag again. You're opening a tag, you're closing a tag. Okay, so that's it. Now it has come to the simpler thing. My class, now I can define my variables here, and whatever program I want to write, I can just go ahead and write it here. All right. Tell me if there is any difficulty understanding this part. We'll start creating some examples, and we'll start connecting it with the practical scenarios in tomorrow's session. But for today, if you have any difficulty understanding any part of it, just let me know. So far it's clear. Now let me save it here. See? So my class has got created and it got saved also. If you go and see MFX classes, but right now I've not written any code into this, but this is my class. You were saying something, Vipula?
Yeah, I would. The assignment you have given us yesterday.
But before that, are we okay on this? Now, whatever we have discussed. See, this object-oriented programming language
Yeah,
is
pretty
a
much.
big concept. Okay, and you might
Mhm.
spend 6 months, and you still might not be able to. There might be some people here who might have done programming in school, college for 3 years, 4 years, but they still struggle with the concepts. Okay, so because the approach is wrong, right? What we are going to trying to
Mhm.
do here is we are actually just trying to go through the simplest approach possible, right? So just understand whatever is required, and let's not get into whatever is not required. Okay, so we understand the structure, and if you have any difficulty understanding this part, just let me know. So we have understood the structure. This is how it should be written, and why I'm creating a class, that also I have understood. See, I do not have an option of writing Apex code anywhere else. I cannot write a variable directly in the open. So it's like a house for my variables and methods. Okay, a protected
Mhm.
house, or an envelope inside which I'm going to put a certain code. Okay, and inside that I'm going to create my variables and the methods and everything. Got it? So tomorrow, once we meet, we will start doing a few simple examples, and I will show you the practical use of it. You will be able to relate to that a little better. Once we start doing some examples, you can understand it a little better. Fine. So that's it, on this for today. Yeah. Now, Vipula, you were saying, talking about the assignment. Is there a question? If you could do that, it's fine. If you could not do that, please ask.